All right. Welcome. My name is Chris McAnally. I am one of the instructors for this class in Cohort 9 at AI Developers Academy, along with my wonderful co-teacher, Dee Del Rosario, who's off in the back there. We have been teaching these wonderful, wonderful people to be full-stack developers, along with the help of a number of TAs and other people who volunteered their time to help tutor these wonderful students. And for the past 4 weeks, they have been engaged in what we call the Capstone project. In the Capstone project, they take on 3 technologies that we did not teach them. They did not know to begin with. And they put them together for a larger project as an exercise in teaching themselves how to use and how to learn new technologies. And today they're going to be presenting the results of their projects, the things they learned, the things they did, and their experience. So I'm not going to stand up here talking your ears off, just appreciate the effort and how far these people have come. And so I'll get out of the way and have the first presentation begin.
Hello everyone, I'm Mona Lisa Chatterjee and this is Tutor Curie bot. I have always been inspired by Marie Curie since my school days, hence the name. It's a chatbot which provides an interactive way to learn about programming languages, concepts, and find an answer to questions. There are numerous learning websites and there are numerous forums like Stack Overflow. So Tutor Curie is created so that user can have a fun way to learn in a conversational manner. I have used Python on the server side as it has many machine learning libraries. Used Chatterbot, which is a Python library, and in that followed the Django project example. Used Beautiful Soup for web scraping and used Stack Overflow API and used React and Redux at the front end. I learned by watching numerous tutorials at different websites and followed example application and Django documentation. One learning experience is that I should have started and planned it out early as it took longer than I thought. So here's take a look. That's the demo of the website. She can greet you in various languages, that's Mandarin. Pardon me, you say like maybe ni hao or something, that's in my Bengali. Hello, hi, my mother tongue. And then in Spanish, hola, ¿cómo estás? And bien. Then she knows about herself if you are asking how are you doing or something. And who are you? And she knows about me too. So if you ask her who made you, she can answer that. She has dreams and aspirations like all of us. And some sense of humor like some of us. So. You can also ask her some programming questions. So it provides an answer and a source. If you click on the source, you go to the website. You can refer to that. And there are up to 10 related questions down there, which you can scroll and user can choose any of them for further clarification. So the questions don't have to be exact. As much as possible, it finds the closest available question. So like here, if you see what do you understand by virtual DOM, or if you type out virtual DOM, it's going to give the same answer. As you can see, it can answer in various questions from different topics like Ruby, React, JavaScript. And it's going to the Stack Overflow API, like link. You can scroll through the chat history and click at any of the previous questions and see the answer. So that's the end of the demo. The features I wanted to add were like Slack integrations, learning from the user feedback, and then like saving the chat, etc. Lastly, I would like to thank my instructors and you all for being part of this journey. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mary, and for my project, I wanted to learn how to make a mobile app because I thought that would be a fun thing for me to do in my free time when I am an awesome developer. So it's called Sprout, and it's for gardening. And let's see, why would I make an app for gardening? It's because gardening, when you kind of look into it, it always seems like it's like more complicated than it really is. And I really just want someone to give me some instructions. And so I thought that I could make an app to do that. And so some of the things, like I want to know like when I need to do things, and you know, I can look up things later, but really just like a basic set of instructions. And so that is what I kind of set out to do. So the tech that I used for my app, I used React Native on the front end to make a Android app and JavaScript. And I used Expo to kind of be the framework for that. And I used a Ruby and Ruby on Rails backend and to make an API. I used a Google OAuth for users, and I did web scraping with Nokogiri and deployed my API via Heroku. Let's see. So here, little demo. Oh, geez. I get silenced. So here's a little bit of my app and sign in. And so you come in and you can choose your Google account. And that's my fake one for this. And let's see. And so you have you can browse through plants from the API when you sign on and kind of learn more about each of them and then this is your garden. And so you add plants to your garden, and you can, and so when you add a plant to your garden, it adds the date that you're supposed to plant it into your Google Calendar. And if you click on any of them, you can learn a little bit more about them. And let me get to the calendar part because that's more exciting. And so you can also, from your garden, make a watering schedule. So once you are all filled in, you can make a watering schedule, and it will give you weekly reminders to water and how to water that week. And so you made a watering schedule, but then it's a lot. So if you feel like you want to delete it, you can also do that. And so then you can go into your calendar, and there's your reminder for that day, and it updates you throughout the week. Yeah. And so, oh, and you can search through your plants. I forgot about this part. And so that's when it tells you to go and the dates that, or around the dates that they should be planted. Let's see. So things that I learned while making an app is that planning is so important and wireframing is so important because everything seems so overwhelming when you first get started. And I learned that doing tutorials is definitely the best way to kind of learn new things. And when debugging, just talk to someone, even if they don't even code, because that's the best way to figure out your issues. I also learned that things, even if you think it's going to be easy, might take a lot of time, and to plan for that and to be flexible with what you can do in the amount of time that you're set. Things that I might change for this project: I used Expo for this project. I didn't realize that it had so many limitations. So, for example, I couldn't use a Google Calendar API. I had to use the Expo version of the API, which wasn't as flexible. And so that was something that I had challenges with. And there were a lot of things that I didn't quite get to for this project that I really hoped that I would. One thing would be integrating a weather API so that every week it would be able to tell you what the weather was like and how often you need to maybe water in a particular week. And also include gardening zones, so be able to tell where your phone is, and that changes, gardening zones are a thing. So that changes depending on where you are in the US. Yeah, and so a lot of the things weren't readily available. I thought something really cool that I learned was web scraping, as it was a little bit hard to get all the information that I really wanted. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Will it let us still like the stream? No, it won't. Do it. Let's just do view. Let's just do presenter show and then we'll just out of it. Okay, for our capstone project, I'm Kirsten, this is Letty. We're so grateful that Ada helped us out so much, and so we wanted to make something that would give back to Ada. And so what we ended up making was a classroom management site. There's one that actually existed in Ada that we didn't know about, where the instructors used to grade our assignments and all that. So we wanted to, here we go. So there was a lot of features that were lacking that we wanted to make more of. And so we wanted something that would be used not only by today would be done, but would be something that they could use in the future, continuing on. So backend, the existing code base was in Ruby on Rails, so we built upon that, GitHub API, and front end was had originally been in Rails, so we made JavaScript, React, Redux, Material UI, and CSS, HTML, and Axios. So,
okay, so for demo purposes, we're just gonna show what an instructor will be looking at right now, and it would be logged in. He will have the option to choose between the classrooms he wants to analyze and grade and see the submissions. For example, Ampers, you could see all the assignments ordered by the due date. You could create an assignment, you would put a new assignment, you would put the repo name, which would be connected to GitHub. Then you could create groups. You could decide between 2, 3, or 4, and it would automatically just sort it out for you what it should be. You could add all of them or not. You could create the submissions by itself later on if you didn't feel like creating the group right now. Then you would finish it. You could add an assignment if you needed to. In the submissions, you could see all the grades of your students. And in there, in case it wasn't graded or it was already graded and you wanted to just change your feedback, you could write your feedback right there, and then it would give you a preview or whatever you're writing. You could see the feedback page. It would just take you to the GitHub link, and you could save the feedback, which would just talk to the back end and save the grades of the student. The students, you could check them out by classrooms, and you could see their profile. And if you're the admin, you could invite students there and or instructors and send them so that they could have access to the website. You could choose by classroom, cohort, or you could just add a new instructor for your database. You could edit the instructors you already have. You could edit the cohorts you already have, the classrooms, the students, so that you could have full control of your database through here and not having to deal with anything in the back end.
Let's see. So everyone's, I'm sure, going to talk about how learning new technologies was a challenge and unexpected things, which we definitely encountered as well. But there were some challenges we thought were a little bit more unique to our project. Some of these were working with existing code base, especially when that code base was mostly done by Charles, and it was like crazy things or like what? They're like, we never learned this
way out of our league.
Yeah. And so trying to navigate that and also thinking of long-term needs for clients. So talking to instructors, like how was their experience using the existing site and what do they wish they had different? Working together and then building a maintainable project because like we said, we were hoping that they are going to take and integrate a lot of our code, and we're hoping to also help maintain it from here on out because we got really invested in the project. And then minimal tech debt. So just ensuring that there's like gems we were thinking about using, but there's really unpopular. So it's like, is this going to be maintained by the developer? Because we had to upgrade Rails and we lost a bunch of gems from that. So just think about that.
Yeah. So I want to show our first
We actually were partners on our first project together, and so this was so we've come a long way. Oh yeah. But yeah, it's cute.
just a little bit of how far we came.
Yes. We really play the flashing though.
This was just already awesome when we did this.
Yeah.
That's it.
Just have to sit up here, talk amongst yourselves. What's that? What do I use here? Oh, I found the HDMI cord. Oh. I don't need any. All right. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Nora. Thanks for coming. So I'm obviously a student in cohort 9 at Ada, and I just have a quick question for you all. Show of hands, who here enjoys really good coffee? Awesome. You are all the target audience for my Capstone project. So I decided to create an iPhone app called Coffee Now using React Native on the front end and a Ruby on Rails API on the back end to query the Yelp API to just look for coffee shops near you. Instead of having to open up the Yelp app and look for unrelated non-coffee results, which is annoying when all you want is coffee. And so, let me just get my cursor here. So yeah, the Coffee Now just gets right to the point. So the first few features I wanted to share with you are the user authentication flow that I implemented and how I use location permissions to immediately get a list of coffee shops nearby. And so here we have our lovely splash screen loading the app. And then we'll have an existing user by the name of Mr. Bob blah blah who's going to log in and grant the app permission to use his device's location, which you'll see in a minute. And then once that happens, it'll just be the simple homepage with one button to get coffee near me. And so that takes you to this very visual, image-heavy list, which I thought was nice.
instead of having a lot of text to read through. So I decided to manually implement the user authentication process because I thought it was a great learning opportunity. Instead of using something like Google OAuth to do that, I had to learn how to generate and pass back an API token, store it in async storage on the front end, and then have the user pass that token back whenever there was a post request to my API in the future. And the next few features I'm going to show you came out of my personal preferences for when I'm looking for a cup of coffee right now. The first being, how close are they to me? Second, are they open right now? And third, how highly rated are they? Like, are they actually good? Do people like them? And so first, to answer that first question, I implemented this Google Map view with markers for all the search results. And this seems very simple, right? But it was actually a major decision gate moment in my project because up until this point, I was working with just React Native and Xcode simulator. And I tried for an entire day. I tried 5 different ways of implementing the Google Maps to React Native maps, and all of them didn't work. So I had heard that the Expo SDK actually had a great map view component that was built by Airbnb, and I decided to just try that, and it worked on the first try. So then I switched to using the Expo SDK. And then to answer questions 2 and 3, how close is it open right now and is it good? There's just the shop detail view. So when you click on a shop, you can see its details. You can see right at the top here, is it open now? Yes. Average rating, number of reviews, and then swipe through just a few photos to see the product and atmosphere. And if you want even more detail, of course, you can go to the Yelp page. It redirects you there. So say Bob wants to visit a coffee shop and really enjoys it and wants to save it for the future to visit again. So of course, he can add it to his list of favorites. And this is done by navigating to the detail page and clicking Add to Favorites button, which you'll see in a minute. And then you can navigate back to the Favorites tab and immediately see it there. There are also a couple of ways to remove a favorite from your favorites list, and that's this video here. The first is by going to the Favorites tab and swiping left to remove it, and then pulling down on the screen to refresh. The other option is to go to the shop detail page itself and click the button to remove from favorites. And this whole bit was surprisingly tricky to implement. I had to force a refresh of the favorite screen by adding like an event listener for whenever you navigated to that screen. And I wanted to also implement the pull down to refresh feature because I enjoy using that in other apps that I use, and I thought it would be just kind of a double check to make sure I have all the latest data. So here's just another look at the tech stack that I used to create this app. I mentioned most of it, but I also deployed my app to my Rails API to Heroku. And I used the Fetch API and HTTP Party, React Native elements for some pre-styled components like buttons, and React Native animations for things like the little loading spinner and swiping images on the detail page. So there were so many takeaways from this Capstone experience, too many to list, but I tried to pick the major ones for myself. And the first 2 are more technical. I realized that managing state inside a React Native application is tricky once it gets bigger and there's more features you want to add and more screens to navigate. And so if I had to do it over again, I might look into Redux or something like that to manage data and state in my application. I also learned a lot about promises in JavaScript and how to chain them, resolve them, use async await for API calls. I still don't understand it 100%, but I will get there. And a third one was how different it is to develop for mobile versus the web. Developing for mobile was really different and fun, but it was sometimes a bit longer. Like you would have to wait a while for your simulator to rebuild after you just make like one tiny change in your code. And the stack traces were like a mile long and debugging was a little bit more difficult, but it was still a super interesting experience. And honestly, the biggest takeaway for me for this project was managing a project from beginning to end, navigating all the twists and turns and blockers along the way. Because this whole blank slate 4-week project made me very nervous at the beginning. I did not know what to do or how to get started, but I'm also pretty resourceful, and so I reached out to instructors and my classmates and tutors and volunteers. And when I wasn't Googling, I was asking them for help, and in the end, I was really happy with my MVP. And so that is all. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rina Tonga. My Capstone project is Shadow. It's an Android app to ensure safety of your loved ones. This slide tells the problem behind this app. What the problem I had is like my son bikes home after his school every day, and he calls me when he reaches home, and sometimes I cannot pick his call. And I want some app to alert me that if he reached home or not on a specific time. So my goal is to build an app to track the location of the user and also alert me when they do not reach a certain location at a specified time. So the target users for this app is parents, brothers, friends, anyone who want to ensure the safety of their loved ones. And I can track also my husband. He can no longer tell me that he's 2 minutes away from home while he's still in the office. So it's easy to track him. So the tech stack I used is like Android Studio is my development environment. I use Java code to interact with Firebase, where it stores the user location. It stores all the user information, and it also interacts with my Google API to track the location and stores in the database, and it displays into my app. Sorry if I sound a little nervous. The key features of this app are track yourself, your family, and locate yourself on map using your mobile phone. View the real-time location of people who have added on to my tracker list. I can also set alert to notify when a person does not reach the destination at a specified time. What I learned. The reason I say it's important to learn the development environment is that I had a time when I had an issue with my code. I went to a Java expert to solve the issue. We spent a lot of time solving whether there is some issue with my code. Later, I realized that it's not the problem with my code, it's with the Android Studio. So I say that it's always equally important to know your environment as equal to your code. The next one is debugging. Debugging is your best friend. So it helped me where I am going wrong and all. So one of my instructional assistant, he always says that debugging is the actual programming. So thanks, Charles. I totally agree with him. So lastly, I learned that failing is awesome. It really is. The more you fail, the more knowledge you gain. So believe me, it's really awesome if you fail. So these are the screenshots of how my app looks. This is the user login view, and the next one is the tracker list. This is a list where I add the people to my list. Nicoletta, I promise I'm not packing you. So to track, actually, the user need to be signed in and give permission in order I can track him. So the next one is the screen where I can add more people to my tracker list. This is the map view, and this is where I set alert. Oops. It's like demo. What? This is the demo of my app. Before signing in, it asks for the user location permission and contact permission. This is a list of people whom I want to track. When I click on the person, I can see where they are on the map. And I can also add more people to my tracker list. So I can add an alert. Oh, sorry, it's slow. Give all 4 coordinates where the destination is located and set an alert. So it gives the pop-up message that the destination is reached. So the more enhancements I want to do within this project is I want to add push notification. And also instead of giving all the coordinates, I just want to give the destination address and just track him and set the alert. That's it. Thank you.
Oh. Hi, everybody. I'm Mariko, and I'll be interning on the Amazon Zero Waste team. But right now, I'm excited to share with you the app that I've built over the last 4 weeks here. My app is called Hungry Hands, and it is an iPad-based point-of-sale system for use on food trucks. The problem that I was looking to address with my app was the limited space and resources that you have on a food truck. Typically, it's just 1 or 2 people working, typically 2 people on a food truck, and one of those people is dedicated from switching from taking orders and then switching back to helping prepare those orders. So that's kind of a major bottleneck area that I've seen as I've frequented food trucks. So either there's a bigger line of customers forming, or there's a backlog of those orders that aren't being fulfilled. So I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to let customers interact with the system themselves. And I will go ahead and show my demo here. Did that start? Okay, so this is the welcome screen. We'll first interact as a customer. There's the view of the whole menu, and food trucks don't typically have a ton of items on the menu, so there's not a lot of need for switching through a lot of screens. So here we'll just be able to click into different items. We can see a little bit more detail on them. We can add them to our order. We'll click into a couple different things, and each time we're adding to the order, there's the cart number is increasing, so we can tell how many things we've added and don't want to get out of hand with how many things we're ordering. So here we can see our cart view. We can see everything that we've just added, and then we can go ahead and click complete, and that will send it back to the preparer so that they can start our order. And we'll take a look coming in from the vendor side of things. We can see there's a very similar menu, but there's a little bit different information. We've got the number of the items that we can make. And then we have the option, instead of adding it, we can edit the item. And then we can also add new items to the menu. So if maybe we've got a special for the day or something like that. But then here we'll see the queue, and we can see that the order we just placed is there. And when we click complete on this order, the page is going to refresh, which will also make sure that we aren't missing any new orders that are coming in. So we've cleared that out, and then we can go back to the main screen. For the tech stack that I used React Native so that I could build it specifically for an iPad, which was a new thing for me. We hadn't built anything natively for iPads or anything like that. And then for my backend, I used Java with a Spark framework. and built out the database that would hold all the orders and the menu items using Postgres, database manager of Postico, and deployed it to Heroku. My key takeaways from this were really like, it was the first project that we were on our own, and I had to really balance how long I wanted to struggle against a problem that I was facing or something I didn't understand, and then when was it better to go and seek advice sooner. There was a lot of things that I felt like I would bang my head against a problem that I should have just gone directly to somebody, but then other times I would go seek help too quickly, and there were things that I really could have figured out more on my own. But there was also a lot of things when there wasn't help. I did have to take a long time, but I was able to work through it, and that felt really good in the end. And then my major takeaway from this was that the project that I built, I have a lot of ideas of things that I want to continue to improve upon it. But the major blocker wasn't necessarily my knowledge or skill level. It was really the amount of time we had. And so that really felt good to think about all the things that I can and will be able to build with more time and more knowledge under my belt. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Zheng. I'm talking about my capstone project, which is called Hike and Seed. I designed for my daughter, who is also here today. So let me see. Is this presenting? Oh. So the key design for this project is I want to make a cross-platform mobile app, including both iOS and Android. And the user interaction will be like she can sow some sunflower seeds virtually after hiking. You are allowed to seed one seed per mile. And also she can just assign some nicknames to each plant, which she really enjoy doing. And also can do some offsite carrying actions like weed, water, fertilize, harvest, things like that. I also want to do some on-site data collection, like use your mobile phone to collect like the user input, like start and end point for the hike and the hike name, the nickname. I also want the system, the mobile phone can generate some data like the distance, the route, and the date for that hike. And also, I also want to do some data visualization and analysis, like map view, list view, and heat map and bar chart. So this is the tech stack I use. For the front end, I use Node.js, React Native, Expo, and the iOS simulator. And backend, I use Rails and AWS and Heroku. And some API I use like Google Maps directions. DAXSky is a weather API I use to get some real-time weather data. I also use Google Cloud to just put some files in the cloud and flag and get some icons. So also a list of library I use for the React Native part. And major features, I have a new hack page, which you can click start point and end point when you get there. And then the distance will be generated automatically. And then some user input. Also include a map view showing all the hacks in the database. And once you click one of the callouts, you can go to a detail page, and there will be the detail for that hack and also the real-time weather and some buttons for that plant at that stage. And a list can also go to the detail page by clicking on the names. And also the data part, I have this called heat map to show how frequent or when did you do each hack, and also plant distribution. So here is just a demo. Showing where I'm here right now. And then you can see now we have 8 data in the database. Then you can click the start button. Okay, I'm changing the location manually for the simulator, so which is kind of slow, and I cannot find the mouse here. Anyway, we're hiking. Yeah, I cannot find the mouse here, so wait. Okay, see the endpoint. We just hiked 3.7 miles. That's it. So, and then have some input. Okay, we create a new data. And then go to the detail page. So since it's always sunny this month, so I got that icon a lot. And then if we go to the map view, we actually can see the new hike, like from there to there. From this building to somewhere on the coast. And then actually we see the test data there, and then as we click, we can go to the detail page, which is confirm it's updated there. So there are 9 hikes now. Okay. Okay. So I also have some additional feature, like I actually, for each hike, I have this route showing up and the customized icon for each marker. And also depends on the weather, like the water button will be disabled if it's rainy today. And for the plant which ready for harvest, we can click the button and change the state, and then the button will disappear. So learnings, I actually take some time to try different tutorials and compare, and then choose the right tool for myself. And then I use a lot of libraries, so I actually don't reinvent the wheel, and be prepared for the worst case. For me, it's like I got the deny API application at the beginning, and then I got a broken laptop in the middle of the project. So, and my key learning goal actually is just include the map view on either a web app or a mobile app. Another one will be data analysis. So even I kind of switch my concept, I'm still doing that too. So I prioritize my tasks according to those. And future enhancement, there can be more complicated logic in that app, like weather condition and carrying events can affect the plant growth. And I can include more plant selections. Now it's just sunflower, because I'm just doing that. Like for sunflower, it takes like 120 days to get seeding stage. But yeah, I can include more plants for this one. And I would like to do some animation tutorial for the mobile app, which might be interesting. Like for the water, you can have a bucket and have some animation for that. And finally, I would like to deploy it to the store, but not right now, not ready. So here are just the links for if you are interested in this project, you can go there. Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'm Dee Del Rosario, one of the other co-instructors for Ambers. And thank you everybody for this first block. It is 4:45. We are gonna take a little break. Please be back in your seats at 4:58 so we can start the next round of presentations at 5 p.m. Thanks. We'll get started in 60 seconds. That was Ada 104.3.
Hello. Welcome to the 5 o'clock Ada Talks. All right. We are going to present. Where are we presenting? Nope, that's comments. Here's the present. All right, perfect. Hi, I'm Kate Pond, and I built a thing. How many of you out there like interactive art? Yeah, me too. I love it. So I made something that would be interactive and art. I actually have a physical sign which can be lit certain colors from anywhere in the world on any device that you can get the internet from. It was my adventure in the Internet of Things. So why would I want to do something so artistic and interactive? Because I had so many ideas, and then I thought back to the light-up skirt that I had made last year for the big Google conference, and I thought, I really want to expand on that, and I want to make it social. I want people to be able to light the skirt up any color. But to do that, I needed to make the connection between the internet and the actual physical device. So I went onto eBay and I found a custom sign maker who made my lovely logo into this beautiful sign. He was actually a shop called Some Workshop. Then from Adafruit, I bought a feather huzzah with Wi-Fi capabilities and a NeoPixel strip where each light on the strip can be programmed to be red, green, blue, and white. Each light can be individually accessed. So I learned so much during this project. And if I told you all of it, we would be here for hours. So I actually broke it down into the different pieces of my project. So on the front end, my React, I used components that were already made. And to make sure that those showed up correctly, I kind of had to do some tweaking and playing with them. When we see the live demo, you'll see that the colors and the timer were both components that were made by someone else that I tweaked for my project. As far as the Ruby on Rails API goes, the queue system was really difficult. I don't know how many requests I sent to the API to figure out what might be the closest timing for getting the colors to the sign. And then the hardware, electrons. Getting the electricity to go from the outlet to my sign and not blow up my board, super exciting. And then of course C++, who knew that there would be a way different way to compare two strings than what I learned for Ruby starting out. I've seen a couple nods in the audience. So one of the things that I really learned from this project was, just like in life, timing will likely never be perfect. But also documentation. Every day that I was on this project, I did a little tiny Medium post that kept track of everything that I was learning. So with 12 colors that I picked for my sign, 3 languages and frameworks, I felt like it was 100% success on learning so much for this MVP. So now for the demo that you've all been waiting for. So when you first plug in the sign, it lights up white as it's connecting to the internet. Once it's connected to the internet, it'll change to the color that was last chosen by a user out in the real world. Then you can go to the website, which is sign at .pondsedge.com, and it'll take you to our website. And here you can choose the color that you'd like it to be. The button changes to the color, and then you can click the color, and it'll change to that color. If I happen to have multiple people in the queue, it'll give you how much time before the next light will go. I have it currently set to, if there's people in the queue, each light will do 10 seconds. You can choose a new color either by button or clicking our headline. So let's choose a couple new colors to show you that, oh, it looks like there's somebody already accessing my sign to change the colors. Look at how keen that is. So now I have 46 seconds before my teal color will show up. Currently, my logo sends you to my homepage in a new tab. But in the future, what I'd like it to do is actually send you to some of the data I've collected so you can see, like, on Thursday, the most popular color was purple, or on this day, the most popular color was red. So it was a really exciting project, and I really learned a lot from it. So I wanted to say thank you so much to all the people who helped and supported me through the making of this project and through the classroom portion of ADA. The wonderful C9 classmates that I have, the marvelous ADA instructors, my mentor Kate, and my electronics mentor Dan, who without him, my lights would not be lit. I also like to thank the ADA sponsors who make this program accessible to folks like me. If you have any questions, you can find me at OKPond on Twitter and Medium, or O-KPond on GitHub. Thank you so much. And I'm actually going to plug the sign-in over there so that later you can all play with it. It's sign.thepondsedge.com.
Hi, I'm Brittany. I built an app called the Emerald Guide, and I wanted to have an easy way for people to access resources in Seattle. So my mission was to create an app that is easy to use and lists all the local resources and how to access them. Right now, we look to social service agencies to provide this information, but I believe that everyone should have this information like in their pocket all the time. Whenever they might need it, they can just pull out their phone. Resources can be hard to navigate here. I found a lot of issues getting the data. All of it was in PDF. So in a city of abundance like Seattle, everyone should have access to healthcare, food, and shelter. It's a basic right. Did you know youth of color represent approximately 75% of the homeless youth in Seattle? Did you know that 33% of the youth on the streets in King County identify as LGBTQ? It costs nearly 4 times as much to care for someone living on the streets than it does for if that person were to have a home. Here's kind of a graph that depicts the disproportionately high rates of homelessness depending on what race you are. So a little example. Back when I had my first apartment, the rent was $1,300. This was in 2013. And now it's about $1,895. And every year, the rent increased by about $119. With this rapid increase in rent, it's driving a lot of people in Seattle into homelessness. So here's my inspiration for my app. Basically, I have like a quick list of all of the resources you can get. And I also have general resources, which list things by category, and you can search through those. Here's another example of some other pages that I have on my app. And I also have a list of how to use what each icon means, I guess. So suppose you're in crisis and you need to look up some hotline numbers. On this page, a user can see available hotlines and then click on the phone icon if they want to make a phone call to that resource. Also, if you want to search through a giant list of resources based on the category, you can search and then select on the drop-down, and it's going to give you another list, which you can also click on the search to look through them, but it's also going to give you a place to call or to see the map or to see the website. So when a user clicks on the map icon, the Google Maps will direct them to that location based on their current GPS location. And you can get directions via bus, walking, or taking a car. A cool thing about my app is that it's specific for youth and for adults. So if you click on the toggle button, it's going to take you to the youth resources, and it's going to show you all of the emergency shelters for people who are under 18. So how did I get all this data? It was very difficult. All of it was found in a PDF, and so I had to use Ruby on Rails to pretty much parse through it and get rid of all of the extra periods and commas and spaces that I didn't want to use, which took a lot of time. Behind the app, I'm using Android Studio. I'm using Google API, Seattle Public Data API. I'm using the Firebase Firestore, and this is to hold my database and also to keep track of user analytics. I believe that knowing who's using the app, where they're using the app, and like how often they're accessing the data is really important to helping individuals and knowing what their patterns are like and how we can help them. I learned a lot of things. I learned that I need deep focus in order to learn new concepts. I also learned that I needed to make decisions and stick to it. I spent a lot of time deciding, well, I could do it this way, or I could do it this way, and that really just wasted a lot of my time. There's always going to be so much more to learn, and self-care is important. Take breaks. If you're frustrated, you might need a break. It might really help you understand what to do next. And there are so many opportunities for code. Here are some of my sources. I definitely use Seattle Open Data Portal, the resource guides that I showed you. And for the facts, I use the King County Countess-in report. And what that is volunteers in King County go out and they survey people who are accessing resources like shelter, hygiene supplies, showers, and they ask them, why are you homeless? Where do you live now? Where are you from? And they basically collect stats and data, which is going to help us improve our problems here in Seattle. I want to thank all of my classmates. I also want to thank the ADA community, all of the instructors and the staff and the sponsors. And I really want to thank my mentors, Sarah and Claire. And I want to thank my family and my friends. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Annette. Just be a moment while I get my slides up. All right, my project is called Product to Politics, and it's a mobile app that works on Android and iOS. And the reason what I chose this project was I wanted to connect people's everyday purchases with the political impacts of those purchases, because a lot of the companies that own the products we purchase are very politically active, and I had a hard time finding out how. So my app is supposed to make it easy for you to find out how. Most of my data comes from a couple APIs, a UPC code, there's 2 of them, and the Center for Responsive Politics, they have something called Open Secrets, which is an API and a website where you can look up all sorts of information about the lobbying activities, the contribution dollars, and different bills that different companies are pushing for. So the tech stack that I used was Rails for my back end, and I used Python for web scraping. The site that I had used, I wanted access to their bulk data, but I couldn't get it, so I ended up web scraping it, but it was a really great learning opportunity. And then my front end was done in React Native, and I used Expo, which is just a framework for React Native that allows me to use both Android and iOS. This is a demo of my app. So this is a home screen, and then you can go to the About section, and it just asks the question if you've ever wondered about the impacts of what you buy. These are the terms of the things that I show users. So like how much to spend on lobbying dollars versus campaign contribution dollars, and what active politicians are shareholders in that company, and the top recipients of their funds. And what happens is you can scan a barcode. This first scan is an unsuccessful scan. And because I use 2 barcode scanner APIs, it takes a little bit longer. If it doesn't find it in one database, it'll look in the other. And the way it works is it will scan the barcode and send that to my backend, which will then make 2 API calls if the first one is unsuccessful to a UPC database, and then get the company information, whether it's the brand, the subsidiary it's from, or the parent company, and look at my database that contains all of the political activities of that company. And so this is just the prompt you see when I don't have it yet. This will be a successful scan. And it's going to show you the image of the item you scanned. So I just scanned a Pepsi can. You can see how much is spent on, sorry, let me rewind back. You can see how much they spend in 2018. So all these are for 2018. And then you can see how much they spent on lobbying and how much they donated to campaigns. And then that's the list of the different recipients. And then you can scroll down and see the shareholders that are politicians. And this is the bill, the Veterans Education bill is the one they have lobbied the most on. If you want to learn more, I link you directly to that company's webpage on Open Secrets, and you can look at it for different years, more information, what they've been in the news on lately. And then you can go back to the home screen and scan again. So my future goals for this project was I wanted to expand the database to look up the environmental impacts of things that we purchase. I was really interested in looking up the raw materials like lithium and nickel. And I wanted to also connect that app with Open Secrets directly and have access to their bulk data, and also perhaps be another resource for people who use that site. As far as user experience, I definitely want to reduce the load time because I make so many API calls, it takes a while. I also wanted to make it more interactive and help people be able to track bills that they're really interested in, or maybe politicians that represent them and they want to make sure that they're not getting too many dollars from some company. And then I wanted to offer some sort of company rating system, and an extension for Chrome for when people are doing online shopping, and then they can find out more about the impacts of what they purchase. The lessons that I learned, the biggest one was not everything works the way you think it's going to work, and don't update things when everything's working great. I definitely updated my entire expo, and to this day, it still doesn't really work the way it's supposed to. And I had to find a workaround it. And I reached out to that company several times, but it worked. It's still, the demo still works and stuff like that. And then I really enjoyed getting feedback on ideas, not necessarily on bugs that I would find in my code, but it was really nice to learn about how people would solve or address the same problem that I was trying to solve. And then, don't code when sleepy. That was another thing. I always made bad decisions that way, and I always were like, oh yeah, I could totally do that. And then I broke my back end like 4 or 5 times in a couple of days. So don't do that. And then I also learned that I like to learn by doing examples rather than watching tutorials. So Expo was really great in that they had this thing called Snack, and that's the thing on the side where you can test out small bits of code and import libraries and try out and see what happens. And you can take things out of it or put things on to try things out. And it's like a lower risk environment without risking breaking your stuff. I just wanted to say thank you to all my classmates, the faculty and staff, and I really enjoyed doing this project. Thank you all for listening.
Hi, my name's Katie, and I'm going to be presenting my app, Pitter Pat Pat. And so what I developed this as is a teaching pattern recognition game for children. So in my research, I found that was broken into 3 stages being the first, extending or copying a pattern. Doing that, you might have a pattern like ABAB. If you asked a child, what's the next thing? It'd be AB. If you asked, what was that pattern? It might be ABAB. Then it would be transferring a pattern. That's when you can recognize a pattern exists, regardless of what like the representation is. So from ABAB to red, blue, or circle, square. The final phase is identifying the smallest pattern unit, and that is taking AB and being able to look what is repeated to make this pattern, in this case, just AB. My 3 levels in the game are broken into those 3 phases. My tech stack, this was a mobile app, and so I developed it using React Native, Redux for the state management, and then my backend is an API I created with Java and Spring Boot framework, or Spring Framework, Spring Boot to set it up. Why did I choose this app? I have a 3-year-old nephew, and I really wanted to make something he could play with. It's not there yet unless someone's helping him because it has no sound, but it's on its way. And then we will move on to the demo. So this is my app. There's a couple quirky things I did that are kind of interactive ways to expand. The top portion is the scoring. So there's a current score, a high score. Then we have the question and directions, and then the answer keys at the bottom. If you get the wrong answer, the high score automatically updates. It will also check and compare the current score to the high score. So if you get a higher score, again, will automatically update. And this is the first phase, so it has 2 different ways, copy the pattern or extend it. Then second phase has a kind of answer key for what do you need to turn the pattern into. In this case, the pentagon is an I, the circle is a J. And if you go to the home button after answering a question, it will also reset your high score and your current score. Then finally, if you get a wrong answer and there's no difference in the scores, it just gives you a heads up, nothing happens. Then the final phase, we get into the finding the smallest pattern unit, just AI in this case. From there, also ways to extend this game was just put in little notes, creating interactive something. It changes what it says based off the score you get. Eventually, it wouldn't be so sarcastic. So what comes next with this? So right now, I very much designed this project around what I wanted to learn rather than what it was good for. So my backend is useless. Does great things, but to be honest, that logic should be stored in the front end because it is very visual in its nature. So right now I need to move that logic to the front end, then either make a new backend or create recreate that same backend to basically create user records, and that way we could track what the children or players, because anybody can do this, are scoring. Are they actually understanding concepts? How does this need to potentially grow? What is good? And then finally, it really needs sound. Young children don't necessarily know what kind of learners they are, so incorporating, tactile visuals and sound is really important to making it as efficient as possible. In addition, would love to have a game level with like drums or something where you can kind of go tap, tap, tap or something, and then they repeat the pattern back and maybe translate a drum from a piano, something like that. So a lot of room for growth. Hopefully one day it'll be ready for my nephew to play. We'll see. And then I believe I am on to, thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Angela, and I made a mobile app to remind you to drink more water. I'm going to put that down a little, if you can hear me, because I'm very short and I'm tiptoeing. I really think that water is probably the most underutilized tool when it comes to our health. And being at Ada, I found that I was very busy and forgetting to drink water and getting headaches and wondering why, probably because I was dehydrated. And that was the inspiration for this app. Oh, I'm not in present mode. Oh. So the features of my app are to calculate your daily water goal, or at least the base level of that, based off of your age and your weight. You can track how much water you're drinking throughout the day, Give yourself hourly reminders to drink water. Get progress reports on how much water you're drinking throughout either the last week or the last month, and find water near you so that you don't have any excuses. Here is a demo. The user can sign in and see their homepage with all their information, including their daily goal. There's a recommended goal based on your age and your weight, but you can adjust that if you want to, say, drink more water throughout the day. You can update your profile, and if you change your age or your weight, the base goal will change as well. And set up your water reminders. That's if you give your phone permission to, which I will do right here. And you'll get your notifications every hour between 9 a.m. and 10 p.m. or 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., even if your app is offline. There's your daily progress. You can pick your measurement for how much you've drank. And when you go back to today's page, you'll see that updated, as well as how much you've already had for the day and how much you have remaining. And I personally like changing the measurements because sometimes I drink a cup or multiple glasses at a time. Here's the graph showing how much you've had over the last 7 to 31 days, making sure you're accountable. And finally, a map feature. Anytime you press a droplet, you'll see where the closest water fountain is to you. Go to the next slide, please. No. No. It's not. For my tech stack, I use Ruby and Rails. For my backend, created my own API. You stored my user information in the Postgres SQL database and deployed it to Heroku. My front end was done in React Native, JavaScript, using the Expo SDK. Takeaways. I wish I can convey, and I think maybe my classmates can agree with me, how empowering it is to walk in first day of ADA, like barely knowing how to code, and then coming in today and saying, in the last month, I built something front to back from scratch without my teacher holding my hand by myself. And I learned, at least in the last 4 weeks, really what was the best practices for me for how I learn, taking tutorials, for instance. If I could change anything, it might be my time management. I'm really proud to say that I didn't ask for a lot of help with this app, which is great, but at the same time, if I had utilized the tools and the resources that we had available to us, I probably could have gotten a lot further. This app has a lot more potential, but I think so do I, and so do the rest of us, and that's really, really exciting. So thank you so much for listening, and stay hydrated.
Let's see. Need this. Can somebody who's used this help me? I can't remember. Oh, I used this adapter. I think I got it. This one? Thank you. Okay. So I want to start. Let me rebuild this before I start talking. Okay. All right. Hi, I'm Stephanie. So I wanted to do a live demo. I just need to make sure this runs because it got unplugged when I was walking up here. So I'll just go ahead and start telling you a little bit about my app. It's called Reach Out. When I was brainstorming what sort of project I wanted to do, I noticed that there are many mood trackers out on the market right now. But I realized that all of the trackers that are out there put the onus on the user to keep track of their mood and then alert their community when they're having negative moods.
And I realized that in my perspective, that's a little bit difficult for a lot of users of like mood apps if you're trying to track your negative moods, because when you're feeling very vulnerable and having a hard time, that's usually when it's the hardest to go and reach out to somebody. And so it's a little bit late by the time you've gotten there. So I wanted to build a tool that helps users by bridging that gap between the way that the user, or between the user's knowledge of the way that they're feeling and their community's awareness of the way that the user is feeling. So I built an app that lets the user add 3 sort of safety plan contacts to their list. The contacts are alerted via text, and if they confirm that they're willing to be that user's contact, then they receive a message when the user goes through a prolonged period of moderate or severely negative moods. And for the user, they are alerted via push notification each day in order to log their overall feeling. So I can just give you a little bit of a demo. So let's see if it's gonna work. Yeah, so I have an account that I log in with Facebook. Okay, and let's say I wanted to add a contact. I would go in here and I'll just add my other self. I don't know how useful it is if you just alert yourself, but that's fine. I put my phone number, nobody call me please. Blah, blah, blah.com. So if I submit myself as a contact, then maybe if the format was wrong, let's see. 913205. Okay, so added that person to the list, and in a couple seconds, at my phone number, I should get a message that says, "Hi Stephanie, the user Stefan has added you. If you agree, you can reply yes." And that will set it so that the user has you down as a confirmed contact. It only alerts confirmed contacts. So now it says, "Thank you." If I go back to my app as the user, I can go in and log my mood, which I wanted it to be more than like, I feel good or bad. So I made something that's a little more interactive in terms of pleasant or unpleasant, deactivated or activated, because there's a difference between a sort of low energy stat and a high energy stat, if that makes sense, or unpleasant, I guess, which would be the difference between like upset and sad. So let's say I submit that, and then I can go back and look at my moods for the week. It's alerting me a little too quickly, so I'll go in here. So as the contact, it says here that this user has been having a really hard time, and it might be useful for you to reach out to them. So then as the user, you can go in here and look through all of your different moods and see how you've been doing this week versus this month. I just added this feature this week, so there's no month data. And that's basically it. So the technologies that I used for the front end were React Native, JavaScript, Android Studio, and Firebase. And then for the back end, I used Ruby on Rails, Heroku, and Twilio for the text messages, which I really recommend. It was really, I was worried about that part, but they have great documentation. So in the future, I would like to make the mood updates more interactive, and I would love to do something like incorporate machine learning so they can see if there's any significant like fluctuation in your mood, because sometimes a drastic high can be really dangerous for people, not just a drastic low or something. So I would like them to be able to see patterns in their moods over time. And some lessons that I learned were to not rely on one library so much, because I really wanted to use this thing called Victory Chart. And then a new version of React Native came out, and they didn't have time to update it. So then I was like really upset for 5 days and didn't know what to do. Everybody probably experienced that. But then it actually, in a way, it helped me to be creative. But I had really leaned on this one open source resource, and then I learned my lesson from that. And I also learned a lot about my own work style on approaching new things and big projects, because I realized that I got myself off to a pretty good start because I started with the back end, which was Rails, and I had more experience with that. So I was able to sort of boost my confidence a little bit going into something where I felt so unsure. And yeah, that's all. Oh, so pretty.
Hi everyone, my name is Alexandria Brown and my capstone project is called Pick a Flick. It's a responsive web app that takes all the titles currently on Netflix and sort of organizes them in a more sort of objective and efficient way. Basically it takes, it organizes them by IMDb score, Rotten Tomatoes, and Metacritic scores where available. And it's basically useful for anyone that is sort of browsing on Netflix a lot and doesn't know exactly what they want to watch and doesn't want to waste too much time scrolling and making a bunch of comparisons, because that's definitely something that I do. So tech stack, I use the MERN tech stack, MongoDB, Express, React, and Node. The database was hosted on MLab online, and the data sources are current Netflix titles, grabbed from the Real Good website, and the OMDB API, which uses those titles to sort of tie important information to them. And the app is deployed on Heroku. So I'm going to do a short live demo. Here we go. Nice. All right, so the main page is just an about, tells you what the site sort of does. Here in the header, we have our navigation buttons. And so if I'm interested in a movie, it shows all the genres currently available for movies or shows, either or. And then this over here just kind of lets you know where you're at. So if I'm like, okay, I want to see a drama movie, this page should show all the drama movies currently on Netflix. And they're organized by, or sorted by, this sort of rating here in the corner. And you can see the drop down to see how those ratings came from, I suppose, how they were aggregated. And movies that are more well-known will have usually more robust like inputs, like The Quest just has 2 versus The Godfather has 3, for example. So they're sorted in this order. You know, the best are at the top, worst at the bottom, I suppose. If you're not sure and you're sort of browsing around, there's a little like memo over here in the corner. You can add up to 5 movies. You can't add the same movie more than once. So we'll do that. If you decide, you know, I don't really want to see this, it's fine to just remove it from your list, pick something else, and then submit, and it will give you a suggestion. I think this is probably useful for like groups as well, where there's sort of like 2 camps that aren't sure what they want to watch. So the website looks a lot better, kind of on a web, like a wider screen, but it works fine on smaller screens and on mobile screens as well. So functionality is there, but definitely looks better wide screen, I would say. Okay, one more. Here we go. Okay, so is it in presentation mode? Okay, so some of the challenges in learning. Asynchronous programming was a bit of a learning curve. Basically, I was used to writing in Ruby, which executes, you know, top to bottom, using promises. And then NoSQL database took a little bit to set up, but once it was up and going, I found it really flexible for my needs. Also, architecture and design. Rails kind of has a lot of scaffolding there for you, and in Node, you kind of have to just create that yourself. So that took me a bit to sort of make sure everything on the back end was like where it needed to be. And data wrangling, basically there's no Netflix or IMDb API that's easily available or publicly available. So it's basically just trying to find these 2 pieces of data and put them together to make a really like robust and complete sort of movie object. And OMDB is also user populated, so someone could go in and tag something with an incorrect sort of genre if they wanted to. Room for improvement, there's definitely a lot. I would love to have the database automatically repopulate. Netflix is always updating their content, so I'd like the database to be reflective of what's actually on Netflix at the moment. Non-US Netflix options would be great. Some sort of drop-down, Germany, UK, etc., whatever. Search bar functionality would be pretty cool, but the main purpose of the app is more so to find content when you don't know what you want to watch, rather than look up something that you are already familiar with or have seen. Although I do like having all the information there, like awards, short plot, and the different ratings that each sort of movie item has. And like I've mentioned before, like better data and inputs would definitely make the app a lot better, more reliable. Sometimes titles that are on Real Good don't really translate or aren't found on OMDB. So having actual proper Netflix and IMDb API would be awesome. And that's about it. Thank you.
Hi. This group is so timely, and I'm so proud of everybody. That does mean that because we tried to schedule for less prepared students, we have a nice 19-minute break until our next start. So please be back in your seats at 5:58, and we'll start the next block at 6.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Salam, and the project that I built is called Seizure Support, which is a voice-enabled seizure tracker. So for a little bit of background, epilepsy is one of the world's most common neurological disorders, affecting about 50 million people worldwide. Critical to the treatment of epilepsy is the recording of seizures, triggers, and the length of the seizures an individual's experiencing. However, it is commonly underdocumented, mostly because the recording of seizures is a burdensome process on top of the burdensome condition of having epilepsy. So the product I built and problem I sought to solve is how can I make recording seizures and having epilepsy and the process of recording seizure activity less difficult and put some of that burden onto a machine. And the idea I came up with is creating an Alexa skill that would record seizure activity and make that information available in a web application. So the tools I use for development is AWS Lambda, Node.js, the Alexa skill SDK, and the Alexa itself, React for the front end, Amazon DynamoDB, Amazon API Gateway, and Amazon S3 for deployment. So I'm going to jump right into the demo, and it will be a demo of someone using the Alexa skill to record a seizure and then interacting with the web application.
Welcome to Seizure Support, a voice-enabled seizure tracker.
Ask Seizure Support to record.
Recording.
End recording.
Ending recording. Say seizure type, or skip to end session.
Focal.
Information has been recorded. Ending session.
Experience. So here you quickly saw seizure activity per day, and this is seizure activity broken down by time span. And then here is a table of the total seizure activity user has experienced. And then you can filter by seizure category, then go back and see all the seizure activity a person has experienced. Because you don't have the ability to add comment during the interaction with the Alexa skill, you can add or edit a comment through the web application. And then or delete an item. And then if you want to add an item through the web application, and if you have the desire to see your table in a PDF format, you can press that button and get that exported to you. And that was just me proving to myself it's cut out, but I promised that if you talk to the Alexa skill, it shows up in the web application. Okay. That's the end of the clip. Okay. I did. So for some lessons learned, YouTube tutorials are really fantastic. I enjoy learning a lot by doing. So finding YouTube tutorials that could teach me whatever I want. I was looking to learn, even if it was about 60% or 70% of whatever I was trying to achieve. I found that I could figure out the last 30 to 20%. So those are really helpful in my learning. And also testing very frequently. I found that if I made a small change to my code, if I didn't test everything else in my web application, there were a few times that later on I found that it broke several other things. So that was painful to learn. And be flexible. It's easy to get sucked into a specific bug or problem and want to work on that continuously for hours on end. But in the overall development of a program, that's not very practical. So as easy and as tempting as it is to get sucked in and keep working on a specific problem, it's not the best thing to do. So future editions, I'd like to build this into a mobile and smartwatch app. Right now, the user is restricted to recording either through the web application or through an Alexa device, and people can experience seizures anywhere, not just near an Alexa. So also want to track common seizure triggers, which are lack of sleep and warm weather. So I would want to be able to account link to a Fitbit, which would automatically track sleeping information or request permission for location. So I can make requests to weather API, so a user would have the amount of time they've slept and also the weather that may, so that would be recorded with each seizure that they've experienced, and that information, if it was influencing their seizure activity, would be recorded. And account linking with my chart, so a medical team would have live access to seizure activity. So thank you to all my classmates and instructors and Ada, and you all for listening to the presentation.
Hi everyone, I'm Nicoletta, and for my capstone, I decided to create an an iOS app that will keep track of the books I'm interested in. So the idea was to build an app that will help me keep track of the books I want. And until now, I have been using the Notes app on my iPhone, but that wasn't good enough. So the app uses the Google Books API for searching, and the user will be able to select a book and add it to a list of their choice in the bookcase. The choices are read, reading, and to read. And here is a short demo. So you can search either by title or by author. And the results will come obviously from the API. And you can see a little bit of detail on each book, depending what information is on the API, we'll bring that up or not. And then you'll be able to add it to your wish list. And there it was. So it's a work in progress. I haven't got to some of the functionality that I wanted, but hopefully it's going to be a project. And the lessons learned tutorials are the best, but there are a lot out there, so pick carefully because I end up watching some and the technology, the React Native actually changed. So a lot of functionality I couldn't use. Stack Overflow is your friend. I think having a good wireframe at the beginning will save a lot of time later because I have trouble since I didn't really have an idea of how to put it together. I end up creating sort of big components that I couldn't reuse. So I learned from that, that the smaller and the more reusable, the better. And obviously everything takes longer than you think. So plan for that and debugging. And the super in this case doesn't really mean super. It means actually that you didn't import the component correctly, but I didn't know that. And what I like to do, I like to be able to add comments or a code or a blurb to a specific book, and that's what I'm going to be working on. And maybe have the option to purchase the book or at least borrow it from the library. Maybe have bookshops there, a map with all the bookshops in the area since I like the maps. And the tech stack I used was the Rails API for the backend and deployed to Heroku. And the front end was React Native, iOS, and many other libraries. And that's it. Thank you. And where's my book?
Hi, my name is Lily Sky, and for my capstone, I decided to make a weather app. So, let's see. My goals for this project were to design, create, and ship an iPhone app. And I wanted it to be usable, flexible, interactive, simple, and pleasing to use. I had experience using Mr. Chili and Carl Weather in San Francisco. They're two microclimate apps that you can swipe and you see the temperature and the changes in the different neighborhoods. And I thought it would be really fun to copy that for Seattle. But then I looked at the data and it turns out that Seattle doesn't really have microclimates. And so everything is kind of the same color. So instead of that, I decided to just use the phone's geolocation and have it just get a map of your location and get the weather for that and do the similar color-coded gradient. So I started out just getting the data, having errors. This is my first iteration. I was going to call it in the sky, and then I thought the 3 S's were a little weird, so I decided not to do that. And then I can show you a demo. Okay. Whew. So here we have on the bottom right there my app icon. I click on it and it opens up to my splash page, which I made on Sketch. And then it takes the Apple Map information based on your geolocation. And that's what the first layer is underneath. So that's where we are right now. And then you see the powered by dark sky that's disappearing as we're looking at it at the bottom. It makes an API call and gets the information for the weather here, weather. Right now, it says it's 84. And then as we scroll this little slider over, it's going to change, and then the colors change. And then the top color, it's yellow if it's after 6 a.m., and then if it's after 8 p.m., it should be blue, because I figured that's when night and day really should be. So, yeah. There is a little information here. Click on the information button, and other than that, it's pretty straightforward. You can use it anywhere, I think. You can use it in Michigan, and you can use it in Oregon, I know. But supposedly, you can also use it internationally. All right, enough of that. Woo! So the technologies I used were React Native, Expo, Dark Sky API, Test Flight, Apple Maps, and Sketch. One thing I did learn about making an iPhone app is that you can't just make it and put it on your phone like you would an Android app. And you actually have to go through all these hoops of like testing, and you have to make an Apple developer account, and then you have to use Xcode. So using React Native and then having to file types. Anyway, long story short, it's in progress. So I have my landing page for it. I have the icons. I have a beta that's been approved. So if you all want this app on your phone with test flight, you can run it. You just have to send an email to mr.sky.app@gmail.com, and I will add you to the list. And then I can tell you when it gets approved for a final version on the App Store, which hopefully will be in a couple weeks. I'm going to try to do another build soon, a final build for now. Okay. Anyway, future enhancements. So I definitely want to submit it to the App Store. And I was thinking about adding maybe another page for rain information. Seattle seemed relevant, but anyway, okay. And then another option would be to see alternate locations, but then it's not weather here, weather now, it's weather somewhere else now, right? So we'll see whether that happens or not. Thank you for listening. If you would like to become a beta tester, let me know. Yeah. Thanks for even getting the right slide.
Thank you. You are very welcome. Well, don't take me until I see if I actually know what I'm doing here. It's clearly not right. Okay. Oh, it's the same what's on that side. Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Gotta get used to using a different. Oh, here we go. Why is it? Sorry, I feel like your taps. Oh, there we go. Hi. Hi, my name is Sarah. My name's Sarah Stiltner. My preferred gender pronouns are she and her, and I would like to tell you about Plentiful Pantry. So I came up with this idea after college. I had gave myself a year-long challenge to learn how to cook, eat less or no meat, and also save money. I was living in San Francisco on a pretty limited budget. My roommates, they were the kind of people who could open up the door and come up with a sweet potato chili using leftovers, and I just did not have the intuition. I wound up noticing I spent
like 30 minutes or 20 minutes, too much time just flipping through the cookbook, noticing that quite often I was just looking at the ingredients. If I didn't have it, move on. And it seemed pretty repetitive and figuring there must be a better way. And if only there were a way I can see just the recipes that I already had the ingredients for. I'd waste less food, less money, less time, and less brain power. Oh, plus, if I thought I didn't have anything to cook, I could prove myself wrong. So the main features on the minimum viable product are you can update the inventory based on your food supply. You can view recipes that you can make without having to go shopping. And the recipes are from Leanne Brown's cookbook, Good and Cheap, which is a collection of recipes meant to be able to support someone who can only spend $4 a day on food. And it's under a Creative Commons license, so I could use it no problem. Here are the technologies. I learned Python for this, which was really fun. I did web scraping and everything but Postgres I learned from scratch. So it was a great learning opportunity. All right. Here's a demonstration. Does it go automatically? Here's the main page. Here's all the recipes that are in the database. You can sort by food type. Here's an ingredient, pretty basic. And here we can manage the pantry. So here are all the different ingredients, and produce is first because that probably requires the most updating based on the food that you have available. Here I'm adding and removing things, updating it. I'll change it automatically. And now we can look at the options, the most exciting part. So I can make all these recipes with food that's in my refrigerator. Here's the main course. And let's see this avocado noodle dish. Looks good. Confirm I do have all these ingredients. So that feels great. And then we're going to go back at the recipes. I noticed I didn't have this oatmeal. I really wish I had. Oh, you know what? It turns out I can change it. I do have almonds. I didn't realize, and the orange zest. And now it's back in my recipe collection. So that feels great as well. You can also edit the recipes. And here's a little bit to show that now it appears in my recipe list when it didn't before. So you know I'm not a fraud. Lessons learned. The biggest challenge I dealt with was managing my enthusiasm for having this app available for myself while learning basically a whole new tech stack. I learned Python the week before we started the Capstone. It was so fun. And the first week I did the web scraping, and it was so fun. And using Python, it was a great way to learn how to use Python while scraping and cleaning the data. That was great. But I didn't yet learn how to do Flask. So when it came time to do the tutorials, I was trying to apply what I learned while I'm doing the tutorial. So it wasn't isolated at all. So it wound up, I was very impatient because I just wanted to have it work now. And I think that, I know that interfered with my learning. I wish I would have had it separate earlier, and it would have taken a lot of pressure off. Oh, and I would have budgeted more time for the front end. Before this month, I thought I was ambivalent at best at front end, but it turns out I could be really opinionated if it's something I want to use that I built. So I would have saved way more time because I just did the bare minimum with Bootstrap. Future enhancements, I would like user logins so I can share it with friends. The author of the cookbook, I've been in touch with her and she wants to share it with her community. So we'll see if I can ramp up for that. I want to incorporate substitutions and optional ingredients. That way, if it turns out there's a recipe that calls for chard, but I only have kale, it'll still show up in my list. I would like to do user testing. I didn't finish the MVP till this week, so I didn't have much time to actually use it and see what the experience was like, and I would like that to drive future enhancements. And I'd also like to incorporate recipe and usage analytics, figure out what the most common ingredients I have are, maybe make shopping lists. So if I got, these 5 ingredients, would be able to increase my my recipe options the most. Thank you, everyone.
Hello everyone, my name is Phoebe and I'm going to show you my capstone called NutriScan. So I wanted to focus on nutritional labels and making them easier to understand at a glance. I feel like there's amazing information here, but for me and I think people I know, you kind of look at the calories and you're like, that sounds great, I guess, and what does it really mean? So I decided to focus on these categories and try to make nutritional information unique to the user. So after some research, I found that the UK has a really good system, in my opinion. They show red, green, and orange for the different levels of nutrition based on their research and what they feel is the best, what are the best thresholds for the average user. So I wanted to take the traffic light rating system and use it in my app, as well as customizing the reference value. So most nutritional labels use a 2,000 calorie daily amount, but I thought not everyone's average, not everyone's even close to average, so it's not as helpful to those people. And also making the amounts of these nutrients more like available, understandable, meaning like what does 34 grams of sugar really look like? I personally don't know, so what's something I could use to make it easier to understand? For this, I use Java and Android Studio. And then for authentication and the database and the barcode scanning, which we'll see soon, I use Firebase. So see someone logging in, and they will go on to scan a product. And then it will bring up just the red, green, orange information of the product. And you can go to daily amount, and then I chose teaspoons, maybe tablespoons would have been better, or some other kind of count of what does that actually look like in real life. And then you can save it. And then going to the profile, you can see it's at default when you sign up, but I want to make it more customizable to who I am or who the user is. So you can put in your information, and then that last drop down is how much you exercise, and the result will be the calories per day to maintain your weight. So you see the updated calories, and then if you go back to the scan, in your save scan, you can see that the daily amount would change. And then, each of these will have a small blurb of like, what is saturated fat? What does that even mean? And then I think another example of a scan. I learned to do tutorials on debugging before I had to actually do the debugging. I learned to make like small apps. So I made like a sign-in app. I made a barcode scanning app. I made like an app just to show the product, and I put them together, and that was really helpful for me. And then making asynchronous calls, because I had 3 different APIs. And at first I tried making them all in line, and it took a really long time to load. So learning threading and like UI threads in Android was really helpful. And then if I was to keep doing this, adding on to the app, I would make it all the information, so the saturated fat, the sugars, all those customizable to the user instead of just the calorie amount. I would add a text search, because if you're at home and you want to look up a product, you wouldn't have the barcode to scan. I would want to give alternate suggestions, so just say you scan that pasta, it possibly could bring up another pasta that's healthier or cheaper, and then maybe even a store locator where you can get a better option. That's it.
Hey, hello everybody. My name is Victoria Garcia, and my project is called SO Lang Museum, and we're going to change gears a lot right now. Okay, yay. So, okay. SOLang Museum is an exploration of esoteric programming languages. So what are those? Well, as a baseline, let's look at some things that aren't esoteric programming languages, things that are very familiar. Oops, sorry, skipping a slide here. Anyway, they exist to explore concepts in computation. Sometimes they're made as art, sometimes they're made as jokes, sometimes they're made for a combination of the above reasons. Okay, now we're going to look at some languages that are not esoteric. Ruby, this is Python, Common Lisp. These are all hello worlds that we're of the kind that we're familiar with, the kind that we are used to using that are straightforward and efficient. In contrast, here's hello world in intercal. The killer app, if you will, of intercal is that it requires you to say please a lot, and there's a lot more to it, but that's what I want you to notice is the please at the bottom. Here's hello world in acronym. Here is hello world in chef. So I found out about esoteric languages just before I started at Ada and was fascinated by them, but didn't have a chance to really dig into them much while we were in the classroom portion. So when Capstone rolled around, I basically begged and pleaded to get to do something with esoteric languages. And I am really, really grateful that staff decided to work with me on this, and also that Charles, who is not here, who's a member of the instruction staff, had some good ideas for me about how to approach it, and was able to give me a lot of support. So I used a lot of different languages in passing for reference, a little bit of Python, a little bit of PHP, believe it or not, a little bit of Commodore Basic, but the core of what I used was Racket. Racket is a Lisp. Lisp came into being in about 1958. It's one of the oldest of the high-level languages, and it's a list processing language. That's where the name comes from. And what's special about it, I mean, there are a lot of things that are special about it, but what's particularly special about it and what's useful to me is that Lisp's source code is also in the form of lists. So that makes possible this macro system wherein Lisp can extend its own syntax. And Racket is like a third or fourth generation Lisp. And in Racket, they have really, really heightened those capabilities such that now it's a really great laboratory for building languages. So it streamlines things like parsing and tokenizing and syntax creation that otherwise could be very, very fussy and difficult. So the first esoteric language I approached was Chicken. Chicken was created by Torbjorn Sorstad in about 2013. It uses two tokens, the string, chicken, and carriage return. And even though this has been implemented, I was able to use, while I was able to use Soderstedt's virtual machine spec, I couldn't use his code as a reference because this is what it looks like. This is esoteric to the core. I love it. I respect it. I can make no sense of it whatsoever. Even though this is JavaScript, I should be able to make sense of this JavaScript. Cannot. So I had to build my own chicken compiler in Racket. So let's go ahead and do a live demo of that. So hold on a second. Try not to look at that. Oh no, some of what I wanted to have up isn't up anymore. I don't know how that happened, but okay, we're gonna open up Chicken's Hello. My Hello World demo Hello World in Chicken. This is Hello World in Chicken. This is not the canonical Hello World. This is my personal Hello World that I wrote in Chicken for the implementation of Chicken that I also wrote. I'm going to now prove to you that it really is Hello World. There, look. Thank you. Okay. Let's escape now from chicken. Oh, come on. Okay, let's see. Let us close chicken. Let us go back to Keynote. Let us play Keynote. Okay, so what I got, and oh, the other thing I'm going to tell you about chicken is that chicken has it might be Turing complete because it has some conditional looping, and that depends on a go-to statement. So while all these other fine and brilliant folks were like, building these incredibly, intricate, integrated things, I was implementing a go-to statement in Lisp. That felt really weird, but I am okay with it. So the next thing I did was make my own language. My language is called Criminalicious. Do not try to use it. It will be up on GitHub so that you can try to use it, but don't try to use it. So the deal with the fun of Criminalicious is in the parsing and the tokenizing. It ignores white space, line breaks, any kind of punctuation. It ignores most characters. All the commands are words and phrases taken from the state of Washington's criminal code, which means that you can write things that look like statutes or indictments or whatever, and they will perform computations. I used to practice law a long time ago. I was a public defender. So when Charles, who is the whole reason I was able to do this, said, write your own language, that's what occurred to me. And Charles didn't tell me it was insane, so I went forward. Okay, so now let us have a live demo of Criminalicious. Okay, don't look at this one yet, because what we're going to do is we're going to look at, that's a full Criminalicious Hello World. We're going to look at an abbreviated Criminalicious Hello World so that you can kind of see how it works under the hood. So these are raw Criminalicious commands. I'm not going to get into what all of them are, but if you run this, you will get, here, let me big screen it. You'll get Hello World from it. Yeah, Hello World. Woohoo! Okay, but this isn't all that fun. This is not exploiting Criminalicious to the full. This is full Criminalicious, and this is a Hello World program, and it's like 1,500 words long, and you can see that. I started out like writing statutes kind of more or less straight. I mean, like if you're a lawyer, these are really bad statutes. These are just terrible examples of drafting. Don't ever, try to use these as law. And then I eventually was like, okay, we're going to misdemeanor incitement of zombie apocalypse. Sure. Attempted criminal facilitation of zombie apocalypse. Well, yeah. Anyway, it was pretty late when I got to this part. But this, I will now show you that it is also going to work as Hello World. It takes a while because this is stateless. But nonetheless, that is Hello World. Thank you. Okay, we are now going to escape all the way from this stuff, and we are going to go back to the wonderful safe terra cognita that is Keynote. Okay, so what I learned a lot of fascinating programming language theory. I learned that lists are wonderful and that deeply nested parens are nothing to fear. I hated all the brackets in JavaScript. I had not seen bracketing. I'm now at peace with all of the brackets. Let's see. I also learned that a Hello World program probably should not be over 50 lines long, let alone 1,500 words. I also learned a lot about program structure and interpretation. And finally, I learned how awesome my classmates are because, okay, I'm getting emotional over chicken. I am so sorry. But, during the worst parts of chicken, when I was just trying to get chicken to count its own words. I was doing that for days. I was so upset. And y'all were the absolute best. And so, anyway, So future directions, this is but the core of something that I want to do. I eventually want to have an online IDE that will have where people can interact with versions of existing esoteric languages that I will make compilers for myself. I'm going to streamline Criminalicious a lot, just based on like actual usage patterns in criminal law. Also, I'm going to put some state in it because it's real slow right now. I'm going to compromise and give it some state. And yeah, that's pretty much what's happening. And I'm going to make Criminalicious Turing complete because I just basically all I need is to do some more with the conditionals in it. So finally, I'm going to close with this quote from Alan Perlis. A language that does not affect the way you think about programming is not worth knowing. And Chicken, for all that it was frustrating, and Criminalicious, for all that it took so long, did change the way I think about programming. So at least for me, at least during Capstone, they were worth it. Thank you all so much for listening and for bearing with and for keeping me sane during the insane process of making Chicken and making Criminalicious. All right, and now I will set up for the next person. Oh, 3 fingers. That's how you do that. All righty.
Hi everyone, my name is Jackie, and today I'll be presenting my mobile application called Box It Up. Okay, so the main problem and the question that I was trying to answer with this application is, where can I donate my items? So a month ago, I was in the process of moving and I was downsizing in space, and I realized that I had a lot of items that I couldn't take with me, but they were in good condition and they could definitely be useful to someone. And to my surprise, when I did a Google search, it was actually a bit difficult to find local charities around me that weren't large organizations such as Goodwill or Salvation Army. So what I was hoping to accomplish with this application is to provide a list to users of local organizations that are currently accepting donations. I also wanted to familiarize people with charities in their neighborhood and allow them to interact more with them. And also, I wanted to help people make a direct impact in their communities. So the best way that I thought that I could accomplish this is by creating a mobile application in which users can interact with a map and visually see what's around them. So for my front end, I use React Native along with Redux for state management. And for my back end, I use Ruby on Rails. Okay, so I'll go ahead and start my demo. Oops. Okay, so once the application loads, the user will see a full rendered map of their location along with markers of the charities around them. The user can interact with the markers, and once they click on a marker, the name of the charity will be displayed. If they select the name of the charity, they'll be taken to the organization's profile page, which has a smaller map view. It has their name, their mission statement, along with the address, and a website if they have one provided. The website component is linked to the charity site, in which the user can review and learn more about the specific charity. There are also 2 buttons available. The first one is for monetary donation, which when selected, they'll be taken to another site in which they can make a monetary contribution if that's something that they're interested in. And the second button is an Amazon wish list link, which will take them to the charity's wish list profile. So here the user can browse through their wish list and get a better sense of what type of items this charity is in need of. or they can also just buy directly from Amazon if they would like to. Lastly, the last section is a list of categories of products in which this charity is currently accepting. So the user can interact with the homepage with the map view, or they can select the donate button, which will render a list of categories. So they can specify what type of items they have to donate. So for example, if we have clothing to donate, we select clothing, and this will render a list of the charities close to us. This list is sorted in order of distance by the user's location. Once they select a specific organization from that list, it'll take them to the profile, which is the same. And on the top, if they click on the small map view, they'll be taken to a larger map view, and they can choose to have the navigation open up in their Apple Maps. Okay, so things I learned during this process is that rubber ducking is real. I can't tell you how many times I got stuck on something and simply just talking about it out loud to someone or even myself. That definitely helped me resolve and find out what the issue was. Personally, I learned the best through tutorials and also building small programs and applications through the tutorials. Also, investing a lot of time ahead of time to design the project definitely helped me in the end to execute it. Okay, and lastly, I want to thank my cohort and my instructors, and thank you, Ada, for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
All right, aren't these some fabulous people? Couple things before we leave. First, I'd like to thank the team here at Zillow who've done an amazing job hosting us. This has been a lovely place to host the Capstone presentations, and they've done an amazing job making us welcome and recording and live streaming this event. So thank you very much. Also, if you can look to your left, look to your right, look down. If you see a piece of garbage, even if it's not yours, please take it to recycle, compost, or trash. We want to leave this place as pristine as Zillow donated it to us. Finally, we have quite a bit of food over here on the my left-hand side, your right. If you like food and you see food, feel free to take food. Because we want to make sure it gets eaten. Anything else? Yeah. We will see you on Thursday, C9, and I want to hear all your stories from internship, glorious and troubled. It will be challenging, but it will also be an amazing learning experience. All right.